Hey folks, I'm Sir Vainglory and welcome to Anatomy of a Battle number 23. This is another attack defence scenario and it's the last stand on Hill 112, but this time I'm playing as the 116 Panzer and I'm attacking the 101st Airborne Division. So this is my third attack defence scenario battle and my first as the attacker. Having fought as a defender in this map, I knew that keeping units concealed as they advanced wasn't much of a problem, so I decided to try to actually reveal units early as a bit of misdirection. My plan was going to be to attack hard on the left flank, but to launch a demonstration on the right with the aim of getting the American to overcommit units there. I always had the option of throwing my Phase C reinforcements into the right flank if he didn't bite on my feint there, or if he began to build up his defenders on the left. I didn't expect to get air superiority against an airborne division, so I wasn't going to spend much on planes. I wanted artillery and infantry instead to keep his anti-tank units heads down and create gaps in his defences, and then overwhelm his AT guns and tanks with armour. So you can see my main attack column hidden behind a line of trees on the left. I have Panzer IIIs in that column, some Panzer Grenadiers, a couple of Panzerwerfers and an off-map artillery observer. I also have a couple of SPA troop sections and a Panzer Grenadier squad that will make the initial advance, along with a mobile wagon for anti-aircraft cover. I'd have preferred to have a few more anti-aircraft units overall, as my plan could be completely undone if you sent over a recce plane and spotted my units. On the right, I've mainly dismounted Panzer Grenadiers and SPA troop with a mortar and some light armour support. The plan was for the infantry to advance fairly openly towards the town on the right, as I expected that to be held by Americans, so I'd drop smoke in front of the town and then push my infantry and Flammenwerfer in to clear it out. As I said, I wanted it to look like I was advancing in strength on the right, so I had a nice infantry line moving forward there. The expected opposition in the town didn't seem to be there though, but I wasn't going to rule out the possibility of there being pathfinders in the town, so the recce and infantry advanced while the Flammenwerfer and mortar stayed in cover. Over on the left, I did want to appear weaker, so I had only the two SPA troop sections with the single dismounted Panzer Grenadier squad move forward in support. Having reached the first tree line, I had my Panzer Grenadiers hold there while the recce continued to advance. I shifted the Gepard supporting this advance to provide some cover to both the right and the centre. And when I confirmed that the next tree line was clear, I began to move the Panzer Grenadiers forward again behind the recce. On the left, the Americans seemed to have nothing below the hill, so I decided it was safe to send the mobile wagon a bit further forward to make sure that I provide advanced anti-aircraft cover. And with still no sign of any Americans, I was conscious that I'm getting close to the first ridge line and that there might be off-map artillery observers up there in the trees. So I brought in a Storch to make a recce sweep across the front line to see if I could detect anything, but it didn't find anything at all. But it was now pretty certain that there are no Americans on the low ground to the right at least. It's possible there could still be some at the back of the town in the trees, but I thought that would be unlikely. There's no sign of American forces on the left of the first ridge either. He might still have recce units up in the trees, but again, not too sure. My units were now entering the town, and I've got one SPA troop section cresting the first ridge. And I kept the anti-aircraft unit back, not too close to any potential anti-armoured attack. But the SPA troop, when it crests the ridge, it spots an American tank up in the next ridge line in the distance. The American decided at this point to bully my Storch and brought in 3 P-51 Mustangs to attack it. And over on the left, I was still wary of there being concealed pathfinders in the town, so the Panzer Grenadier squad covered the village from the trees while the SPA troop advanced. So 5 minutes in, I've reached the edge of the hill without any engagements. It looks like the American is defending pretty far back, and there might be the opportunity to push fairly hard from tree line to tree line on the first ridge on the right to make it look even more like a serious attack there. I'm planning to bring in a couple of tanks on the right in Phase B to hang about conspicuously in the background. On the left, I want to satisfy myself that there's nothing watching from the trees in the ridge line, and when I've done that, I'll move my attack column up into the village below the ridge. As it was beginning to look like the American might have nothing deployed forward at all, I wasn't sure if any of my units had been spotted yet, so I decided to send my Panzer Grenadiers up onto the ridge while the SPA troop pushed further right. I wanted the front line marker to keep pushing back here if possible, so that the American tension stayed on the right. On the left it still appeared clear, so my Panzer Grenadiers advanced and the second SPA troop section approached the ridge. I also advanced the mobile wagon a bit further forward to keep up the anti-aircraft cover. I also reckon it's safe to start moving my main force up, starting with the Panzer Grenadier squads and the Panzer IIIs. So I plan to move the infantry up towards the woods by the village. I don't want to move them too close to the front line yet so that there are no clues that they're advancing. And the plan is to send them to advance wide left from tree line to tree line, clearing any anti-tank units to discover, and the armour will hold in the village for now, but I move my artillery and the spotter further forward. So the Panzer Grenadier squad's just about to reach the tree line on the ridge, and the infantry's moving forward to advance up onto the ridge as well, on the far left. On the right, light artillery fire, probably from a 75mm howitzer, began to come in on the tree line ahead of my SPA troop, and this was had to be blind fire since I had not anything that far forward. I also spotted the American tank again, which turned out to be an M10A1 tank destroyer. The infantry line on the left is now advancing, and the Panzer IIIs at the bottom of the hill have a command tank there. I've also moved the single Panzer Grenadier squad to more closely support the 2 SPA troop, and the plans for the infantry to advance and flush out any defensive positions for the artillery to hit before the armour moves up. The American brought in a Marauder, 2 Marauders actually, to target a SPA troop section, which was a bit of overkill. It suppressed them, it didn't even wipe them out. And I called in my Focke-Wulf 190 to attack the bombers, but I realised that it wasn't going to reach them in time and ordered it to evacuate, but the American fighters came back in, caught it and shot it down. So over on the left, I'm pushing my SPA troop forward again and sending the Panzer Grenadiers to start the sweep through the trees. Another Marauder comes in on this side and it attacks my SPA troop as well. Over on the right, I start moving my Panzer Grenadiers up onto the ridge while I push the SPA troop towards the next ridge line. A Pathfinder squad appears right in front of my SPA troop, and on the far right a truck unloads an Airborne rifle squad, and then another truck and jeep appear. So the Pathfinders up on the ridge engaged my SPA troop as they advanced. My troops returned fire and continued to push forward. Eventually the Pathfinders pull back, but an Airborne rifle squad shows itself and it wipes out my SPA troop. So at least I know there's Americans in the next ridge. Over on the left, the SPA troop there are getting nearer to the next ridge line, and there's still no sign of any Americans, but I reckon he must be defending that next plateau. I have my Vesps target the tree line to the left of the road in case there's anything concealed in or behind it. On the right hand side, I've brought my SPW-234 recce car up onto the ridge and have my infantry advance. The Airborne rifles start to fire on another SPA troop section, but they withdraw when they take fire from the SPW. And over on the left, my Panzer Grenadiers are now spread ready to advance across open ground to the next ridge line, and I'm repositioning my Wesps to avoid counter-battery fire and moving the Panzerwerfer into range to support the infantry advance. So the infantry begins to start pushing forward. Over on the right, I've decided to send my Panzers around the right flank where they can approach behind a tree line rather than send them up the main road towards the hilltop. It's slow going for them, but I keep my Panzer Grenadiers moving towards the next ridge for now. And on the left, the Panzer Grenadiers are now halfway to the ridge without drawing any fire, and I send the SPA troop on towards the next ridge. Over on the right, my SPA troop get to the next ridge at the same time as an N10 moves forward to get line of sight on my units. The SPW-234 fires on the M10 with little effect, and the M10 fires back, destroying it easily, as you'd expect. My SPA troop over here have now detected a host of American units, including a couple of M1 57mm anti-tank guns and the M10, I need to make sure that I keep these units focused on this side. I have my mortar target one of the anti-tank guns in case I need to make an armoured push here at some point, and order the Panzer Grenadiers now to advance up onto the ridge to engage the American infantry. On the left, my SPA troop spot an American recce section withdrawing and an M157mm anti-tank gun up on the top of the hill. Howitzer fire begins falling on my lone Panzer Grenadier squad from near that M1. We then see a Pathfinder squad falling back along with the recce section. And when my second SPA troop section gets into the trees, it spots an airborne rifle squad off to the left and a leader section to the right. As the first plateau is clear, I now send the Panzerwerfer forward to get them in range with the Gepard for anti-aircraft cover. I also have my Vesps shell the M1 on the hilltop, and they eventually are able to destroy it. The American brings in two B-26 Marauders on the right, targeting my mortar. And again, it's perhaps a bit of overkill, but they do destroy it this time. And he also brings in his three P-51s to strafe my infantry on the main road. He withdrew his M10 from the edge of the ridge, and I'm happy to leave most of my units down below there for now. He's committed a lot of air power, in particular against me on the right already, and the longer I can keep him doing that, the better. Over on the left, my Panzer Grenadiers have now crested the hill, and they push forward towards the next tree line, and one of my Panzerwerfers is laying down a barrage to cover their advance. The American brings in his P-51s to strafe the infantry over here now, and he pins down one squad. I now have all my armour on a general advance order, and I'm moving my observer up to get in range of the hilltop as well. It looks like there was only that single rifle squad in the area below the hilltop, and the rocket barrage has sent it into retreat. But the American continues to have his P-51s attack my Panzer Grenadiers. On the right, things remain pretty static for now. One of the rifle squads has found a bazooka section and forced it to retreat, and the only other action is the Americans firing on my pinned SPA troop. I've sent one of the Panzer Grenadier squads a bit further right to provide some protection to the Panzer IVs. Overall, the American seems to have more units defending the right than the left, and it looks like the way is open for an armoured push up the left flank to the objective, particularly if I saturate the area with artillery, but his Marauders could cause problems, and he seems to have plenty of them. So the P-51s and a Marauder come in and my Panzer Grenadiers again, pinning them down, and my second Panzerwerfer fires on the hilltop tree line to support the advance. I've also got one of the Wesps targeting the hilltop, while the other one targets a heavy machine gun that was positioned in the centre of the map. And my Panzers are finally moving up. Over on the right, the SPA troop there have managed to recover enough morale for me to get them out of the trees and head back down the ridge. And the American has repositioned his M10 a bit further to the right, so he probably has something out on the right flank that's got a visual on my Panzers, and he's expecting me to push them forward up that road, so he's looking to cover that off. So again, keeping him busy. And on the left, as the infantry pushes forward, they discover Pathfinders and a bazooka section, both an obvious anti-tank threat. They manage to suppress one of the Pathfinders quickly, and the second one is suppressed just as the Panzer IIIs crest the ridge and add their fire. The artillery fire comes in then on my SPA troop to the right, but the main force destroys the bazooka section. And my Panzer IIIs are now chasing off the Pathfinder squad as the Panzer Grenadiers push hard towards the left flank of the hilltop. There's an M1 anti-tank gun by the crossroads towards the right that could be a problem, so I brought in my FW190 to hit that and it fell back. And I now have a Vesp targeting the other Pathfinder squad's position to keep it suppressed. American artillery kills off my SPA troop, but we finally eliminate the Pathfinders. And with that, the route to the hilltop is now clear, and the Panzers advance. I have the Panzerwerfer lay a barrage in the trees to the right of the road, and the infantry will clear the trees to the left. My infantry on the left, they spot another rifle squad up in the trees as they advance, and they and the Panzer IIIs all engage it. so it's pinned quite quickly. My Panzer IVs and the anti-aircraft vehicles are now moving onto that same plateau, and I call in an off-map barrage to protect their right flank against any infantry or anti-tank guns that might try to attack from over there. But, as I feared, the American air power comes in on my main assault. A P-51 leads 3 B-26 Marauders with 450kg bombs. My anti-aircraft cover's not sufficient to stop them, and they manage to carry out their attack, and they absolutely obliterate my Panzer IIIs and force the rest of my armour to retreat. I'd ordered another Panzerwerfer barrage on the hilltop, but there's obviously nothing advancing there now to take advantage of the rocket strike. My Panzer Grenadiers finally reached the trees on the left of the hilltop, but they no longer are coordinated with the Panzer's advance. They're just beginning to resume their advance. But this situation is made worse by another Marauder attack. Only 2 this time, but again they're able to suppress my tanks and force them to fall back. But despite being unsupported, the Panzer Grenadiers continue their attack, firing on a M1 howitzer, and they also vising 2 MA-10E1 tank destroyers up in the hilltop. Over on the right, the American sends a Pathfinder squad to see where my units are, and they're fired on by both Panzer IVs. He's pulled his M10 back a bit out of sight, and I decided to start pushing forward again, just to keep him busy again on the right hand side. I moved the Panzer Grenadier squads to cover the crossroads towards the centre, and cut off the potential route of an attack from right to left for any Americans. But they took artillery fire as they advanced, and they ended up being pinned down. So overall, the Panzer Grenadiers on the left are holding position on the top of the hill for now and forcing the light machine gun rifle squad there to retreat, but the American sends his M10A1s to engage my infantry. My Panzer IVs are beginning to advance once again, and my Phase C reinforcements are on their way in. To make sure my assault goes through to take the objective, I'm bringing in a couple of Panther Gs, a couple of Marders and some more infantry, and I've made sure I've got a couple more anti-aircraft units to help deal with the American Marauders. On the right, I seem to have successfully pinned the units he had defending there, as there's been no sign of anything falling back towards the objective. But on the left, my armour's pushing forward again, and I'm queuing up artillery and rocket barrages to try to prevent the American from killing my infantry. One of his M10s on the left strays too close to the edge of the hill, and it's killed by my Panzers. And my off-map barrage then comes in on the hilltop, but that's followed shortly after by a heavier off-map barrage by the Americans that lands right on the tree line here. I was a bit confused to start with what was going on, then I realised the Americans also had that barrage coming in. So over on the right, I've sent my Panzer IVs forward to get involved in the fight, probably a bit too late to be honest. I have them go to opposite ends of the tree line, and the one on the right attacks an M16 up on the ridge that was laying down fire on the infantry, driving it back. The other Panzer IV moves up to engage the M10, but there's still too many infantry and other units around there, and it takes a hit from the M10 and gets forced to retreat. Then the American had queued up another off-map artillery barrage that came in on the Panzer Grenadiers that had ordered to take the crossroads. It destroys one squad and pins the other, but by this point I don't think there's a need to hold that position any longer. If the Americans attack from that right flank, my Panthers should be able to deal with it comfortably, while the Panzer IVs and the infantry prosecute the attack towards the objective. The Pathfinders are finally eliminated, and that removes the potential threat to the armour. I had been bringing in a Ju-88 to bomb the infantry on top of the hill, but it was attacked by the P-51s and forced to fall back, but my anti-aircraft units were able to destroy one of the Mustangs. The American barrage didn't manage to wipe out my Panzer Grenadiers, so I still had some vision of the hilltop, and it seems like the American anti-tank units have either been destroyed or forced to retreat by my barrage, so I send my massive armoured units up to make the assault. On the right, the American has put down smoke to screen off my Panzer, and he sends an airborne rifle squad over behind the smoke. The M10 turns to fire on the remains of my Panzer Grenadiers near the crossroads, and another airborne rifle squad attacks from the trees. He's finally coming out on top over here, but the force deployed on the right flank has essentially achieved its objective of diverting American resources away from my main attack. And it's difficult to coordinate such a huge mass of units, but I'm trying to make sure that the half-tracks and infantry crest the ridge first if possible. A couple of units stopped to fire on the American infantry over to the right, but the majority of units have got pushing forward. My half-tracks do make it onto the ridge first, and they open fire on the American infantry that's been engaged with my Panzer Grenadiers towards the left. And I was even able to get some units to advance and fire, while others just pushed forward without engaging. But the American brought in his aircraft again. P-51 drew fire, and a Marauder was able to make an attack, being forced to fall back. Fortunately, this attack isn't as effective as before. It misses pretty much to the rear and left, below the ridgeline. His M10 has returned though, and it fires on the half-tracks which are pushing for the objective. And then an American off-map barrage falls on my units, forcing some of them to retreat. I had called in another Panzerwerfer barrage on the forest by the objective, and you can see there's an off-map barrage planned for the trees to the left of the road. So we're at a bit of an artillery-induced stalemate for now, both sides suffering suppression from artillery and being forced to fall back. Over on the right, I've only have my two Panzers left for now, and with the American closing in, I tried to pull the tanks back from the ridge to the ground below. But the American infantry managed to get close enough, got into range to attack them with their bazookas, and they were able to take both of the Panzer IVs out. Over on the left, more of my armoured units are now cresting the ridge and beginning to engage the American infantry, and the M10 that's there moved back into cover. But another Marauder comes in, and again it survives anti-aircraft fire long enough to rescue its attack, and the results of this attack are a bit better than last time. It's able to suppress some of the units and force them to retreat. Overall, the objective seems to be clear now, and it has my Vest laying smoke by the forest where the M10 was, so that I can advance behind cover. And my Panzer Grenadiers are still fighting the rifle squads in the trees, and the M10A1 further back stops and provides fire to support the Americans. More Marauders come in, and again, this time their attack runs too short for my anti-aircraft to suppress them, and they cause a lot of suppression on my units and cause all of the vehicles to fall back again. And a second pair of Marauders follow in, and they have similar results. Fortunately though, my infantry didn't retreat, they were just pinned in place. So when they recover morale, I'm going to have control of the objective, presuming they don't get wiped out by artillery. I've had one of my Panzerwerfers lined up to barrage the big forest and hope to suppress anything that might be concealed in there. And my Panzer Grenadiers recover morale and resume their advance as the barrage ends. And I want to take advantage of any suppression the rockets caused, so I send one squad over towards the forest under cover of the smoke, and the other two are going to hold at the objective. And as my Panzer Grenadier squad approaches the forest, the smoke begins to dissipate, and an M10A1 appears. But fortunately the Panzer Grenadiers are able to hit it and force the crew to bail out. And then as the smoke clears further, just as my armour recovers its morale, they're able to finish off both of the M10s. And with that, everything I have begins to push forward towards the objective again. But it's clear that the Americans had no more units near the objective, and the neutral view shows that he also didn't have any strength to retake the objective in the time he had left, so he decided to surrender. So ended up being a major victory, and well within the time limit. So I thought pretty pleased with how the battle went from my first attack. Over on the right, I could potentially have done a bit better there, but to be honest, it was just a diversionary attack. I wasn't particularly bothered if I lost all those units, as long as the main attack managed to go through on the left. I think the American might have spent too many points on air power. I think more artillery might have been better, definitely more anti-tank. I'm not sure how much damage my artillery did on the left. I didn't seem to come up against much in the way anti-tank guns or even infantry, so I don't know if the artillery wiped out very much or if it just was weaker on the left flank overall. But anyway, thanks for watching. I hope you guys have enjoyed this. Please leave me a comment and rate the video, and I hope to see you again next time. Cheers.